All right. Matthew chapter 20. Matthew chapter 20 this morning. As we look at, all right, good. We're looking at, we remember those in our society who have served. And as we look at a principle here that Christ taught us as to why service is so important and why it is called service. And just some points that we're going to bring out from some things that Christ taught us that I believe are exemplified in those who serve in the military, and then also some applications we can make to ourselves. So let's read Matthew chapter 20, and let's begin in verse number 20. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. So this would be the mother of James and John, two of Christ's disciples, coming to him with them. And he said unto her, what wilt thou? She saith unto him, grant that these my two sons may sit, the one on thy right hand, and the other on the left, in thy kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, Ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? And they say unto him, We are able. Be careful when Christ asks you, are you able to do this? And you say, yeah, I can handle that. Make sure you understand what you're saying. Verse 23, and he saith unto them, Ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left, it is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. And when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the two brethren. My suspicion is because they got to him first before them. But verse 25, but Jesus called them unto him and said, Know ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servants. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. Heavenly Father, I thank you for your love for us. I thank you for your service and your ministry to us. And Lord, I pray that you would help us to understand this concept of service, this concept of ministry, of being a servant. And Lord, I ask that you would give me your help physically and spiritually. It's your spirit that quickens, makes people alive. Our flesh profits nothing. Your words, not mine, but your words are spirit and life. And I pray as we just review, be reminded of, perhaps even learn anew this principle, that it's not terribly deep, Lord. It's not terribly difficult or complex to understand, but it can be difficult to put into practice in our life. And I pray that there you would help us. And Lord, help us to recognize those who have given their lives for service, and to remember the greatest service that was ever done in your Son dying for us that we might be saved. And we pray these things in Christ's precious name. Amen. I am the greatest. This is the legend of Cassius Clay, the most beautiful fighter in the world today. He talks a great deal and brags indeedy of a muscular punch that's incredibly speedy. The fistic world was dull and weary. With a champ like Liston, things had to be dreary. Then someone with color, someone with dash, brought fight fans running with cash. This brash young boxer is something to see, and the heavyweight championship is his destiny. This kid fights great. He's got speed and endurance, but if you sign to fight him, increase your insurance. This kid's got a left, this kid's got a right. If he hits you once, you're asleep for the night. And as you lie on the floor while the ref counts 10, you'll pray that you won't have to fight me again. For I am the man this poem is about, the next champ of the world, there isn't a doubt. If Cassius says a cow can lay an egg, don't ask how, grease that skillet. He's the greatest. When I say two, there's never a third. Betting against me is completely absurd. When Cassius says a mouse can outrun a horse, don't ask how, put your money where your mouse is. I am the greatest. That was one of the distinctives, one of the colorful characteristics of Muhammad Ali, his bragging, his charisma, if you will, his self-promotion. I've heard interviews or like right after fights where he's saying, I'm on top of the world. I'm pretty. You know, the announcers, you're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. And, he's just full of himself. And, in a lot of cases, he could back up. This fight he had with Sonny Liston, he knocked him out in the first round. And so he had some ability to back up what he was saying. And a lot of people did rush to him. A lot of people are still fans of him. And, this is a very exaggerated and a very colorful example, though, of what this, office. I had been, back when we were in Pennsylvania, I started working part-time at the post office. I would go in on Saturdays most weeks to relieve the postmaster. And then if she took a vacation, I would fill in for her then. And then the unions tried to make things better. And so they wanted to change some of the structure around of it, and I had to reapply for my job again. Okay, so I was the latest person hired. I only worked one day a week. The rest of the people in the office made their careers out of the post office. I basically, had only been there for a couple of years. So they're asking me questions in this application process. Do you consider yourself among the best or most effective in your office? No. They're all doing their work. They have questions like this. Do you consider yourself the best? Just questions like this. And I answered them honestly. The way I viewed myself, not that I was a slacker. When they asked about working hard, I said, yeah, I work hard. I try to do my very best, but I didn't consider myself the best. Everybody there had more experience than me. And actually lost a position I had already had. I had to go to a different office for a couple of months and then come back, and my postmaster threatened to fill out the form herself when I reapplied for the job, because basically I didn't brag enough on myself, but that's what the world wants. We had a former president, it's the greatest ever in the history of the world, just more than anything else, and just whatever you think of his politics or his governance, he definitely thought it was great. And that was part of the charm that some people voted for him, because he is, in a way, like Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. There were some ways where he could back up some of the things he said. He promised he was going to bring jobs back to the United States, and in a measure he did. Now, I'm not publicly from the pulpit supporting any candidate or another. No, but the point is, in our society, we try to get ahead. Being a leader, and even in church circles, who is the person that can get things done? Who are the people that we read the books about? It's the people who have seemed to have been able to achieve measures of success, or people who have been able to accomplish things Who do we respect? Who do we look up to? And Christ says, look, the reality with God is different. The way God looks at things and looks and evaluates us is different than the way we evaluate ourselves. We're looking for leadership skills. God is looking for those who are willing to serve. We are looking for talent and intellect and charisma. God is looking for humility, faithfulness, and submission. Christ says here, if you want to be great, if in the world, if we want to be get ahead in life, we have to know somebody. We have to connect and network and get connected to the right people. And Christ says, that's what John and James and his mother were trying to do. They're, hey, let's lobby. Let's kind of get in close to Christ to see if we can be at the right hand and if we can secure that position. And as I said, the rest of the 10 were indignant, probably because they didn't think of it first. I don't know. The Bible doesn't say. But given some of the other interactions we see with the disciples, they kind of had the same spirit the two had. But God says no. If you want to be great in the eyes of God, you're going to be a servant. You're going to be someone who ministers. What is a servant? It's somebody who gives something of themselves to help or meet the needs of others. It's time. We give time to help others. Time is very precious. We're all busy. We're all, just absolutely taken up with, posting cat videos and stuff. No, I know there's people who are a lot busy with other things. But, some of these conveniences, they're great, but they've made us a lot busier and taken up a lot more time. And yes, many people are able to get more things done, but we're also doing more, and our time is more limited. And so when you give time to help somebody else to make sure their needs are met, that's being a servant. When you give up some of the resources you have, some of the things that you have, hey, you know what, I have this money, but I'm going to give it to this person to help them in order that they can purchase the things they need. That's being a servant. When a director or a manager kind of invests his ideas and his or her talent and says, here, let me help you know how to do this the way that I learned how to do it, and you invest what you have learned and your intellect or your energy into others. That's being a servant, so that way they prosper. They are helped. When you give your dignity even, or the perception of your dignity, when you're willing to be behind the scenes and let others get the credit, when you're willing to know that you accomplished the work and somebody else is kind of getting the glory for it, that's being a servant. That is helping others. And it's a matter of giving. Love is a matter of giving. God so loved us that he gave. Husbands and wives, in loving each other, give time and attention and give of themselves. And so to our human nature, this kind of means we lose. When I give up something from myself so that somebody else can succeed, and maybe my opportunity to succeed. Maybe I give up my opportunity to be seen as the one who gets things done so that somebody else can get done and get the credit for it or accomplish what they need. When I put my goals and my agenda on hold so that somebody else can accomplish and fulfill their agenda, that's being a servant. It is making sure that others succeed and giving them what they need from ourselves. That's being a servant. And to our human nature, that means we lose. When I give myself and help somebody else and I'm not helping myself, that means I lose. But in God's sight, it means we win. That's whom God is not impressed with talent, because all of our talent came from him. God is not impressed with strength because he has all of the strength. And again, our strength came from him. God is impressed when we give up for ourselves to help others and to serve. Whether we're a father in a home and we give up our time and our hobbies so that our kids can have the experiences that they need and the help that they need and the attention they need. When I give up, when a wife gives up her time and her energy when she's been working hard all day so that she can help her husband in some endeavor, some project that he's working on, or her kids, again, in some need that they have. When a leader in a workforce puts aside their daily tasks so that they can help one of their coworkers finish their task or accomplish what they need. In so many different ways here in church, when we put aside our ambitions and help others with their spiritual walk, then we're being servants. And you know what? God pays attention to that. Christ was saying to the disciples, look, you want my attention? You want the favor of God the Father? You need to serve. Even as Christ served. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I want to say that's why it is important. Because if we're going to model ourselves after Christ, if we're going to be godlike, become godly, not in our power and our wisdom, not in our nature, we're not going to be God. But when we try to instill his character in us and allow him to develop his values and his goodness in us and allow him to transform us into his image, we're going to value service over talent, over intelligence, over charisma, over wealth and position and power. We're going to value those, not that can talk the game and maybe even play the game as well. It was hard to contradict things that Ali said because he was a good fighter and he proved it. It's one thing when a guy mouths off and then gets his clock cleaned. But still, even with someone like that, God, he got his reward. He was admired. But you know what? In God's eyes, God would have rather that Cassius Clay would have used his abilities to serve others, to help others. That is what would have impressed God when Cassius Clay stood before him. That is what would have been impressive to him, and that's what ought to be impressive to us. As we look at and evaluate those in our circles, those in our neighborhood, those in our family, those in our church, and by evaluate, that is, who do we look up to for our example? Who do we value in our society? We ought to value those who serve, and that's why a weekend like this is important. I know that on the scale of major holidays, sometimes things like Memorial Day, things like Veterans Day, especially when it's on a Saturday and it's mostly observed on Friday, the trash didn't pick up Friday because that's when they're observing Veterans Day. The mail, I don't think, went out Friday, instead of tomorrow. Normally we're used to the Mondays and those type of things. So sometimes these things can kind of catch us off guard. But it's important. It's an important holiday because it's called military service for a reason. And I think that they should be folks that we should honor in our society. The way we vote, the people we put in power, that ought to reflect what is important, how we value service. Who are those in our government? Who are those that we put into power that honor and value the service of those who gave themselves and were willing to serve for our country? I just came up with a couple. I just honestly looked up a couple of things. I did not have the privilege of serving in the military. I know people who have. And there's just some things just some things just to kind of to set off our thinking and sort of prime the pump, as it were. But these are things from the Department of Veterans Affairs. When someone is deployed, here's some of the challenges and things that they faced. Safety concerns, obviously a hostile environment, illness, injury, trauma, as in combat and accidents and those different things, exposure to toxins, intense heat, intense cold, dehydration, weather, extremes, not having needed equipment, delayed supplies, it kind of goes together, sleep deprivation. I've seen pictures of servicemen and women, leaned up against a tire of a military vehicle, and that's where they slept for the night. Lengthy deployments, being deployed multiple times, uncertainty and ambiguity sometimes of the mission, an ambiguous enemy you can't really, define or put your, just being able to know which one of these people that are around me right now, who's the enemy, who's not, because of the way they hide and the way they try to blend in. Authoritative work environment, which, sometimes people try to abuse their power. Fear, anger, hatred, loss, death, survivor guilt, hyper-focus, concentration, fast-paced environment, lack of information, a challenge of their values. You throw a young man or young woman just out of high school from a godly home into an environment where there are people that are very godless and openly against the Lord. I know of a person who even went to Bible college and was very solid to all indications in their faith, went into the military to be a chaplain, and now has departed from the faith in amazing ways. And just ways I wouldn't have believed. Just that kind of a challenge. Concerns about employment upon return, managing social challenges that they have, relationship conflicts, separation from family, sometimes loss of income or financial worries, little to no privacy or private time, perceived lack of support. Here's some of the things. Hold on. There we go. Benefits and policies for veterans continue to change and become more complex from year to year. The system can be hard to navigate, and it takes knowledge and persistence. This is when they come back, understanding what's available, what's required to file the right claims, just getting the benefits that our government does have available. And I know we all can understand and have been told about how often there is not enough resources available, for our veterans. And so, but even navigating the ones that are there, trying to cut through all the bureaucracy and the red tape. Sorry, I'm trying to be as sanitary as I can. Can be a stressful time. Post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, hearing loss, illness caused by toxic exposure. We talked about that a little bit. Injuries that can show up years later. Transitioning back to civilian life, especially for someone who's been deployed, can be especially tough time for veterans. Finding the mission again. What's my purpose? In the military, you're fighting in a campaign. It's easy to see, or can be easy to see, hey, yeah, this is my purpose. This is my goal. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm here. This is why my life is significant and my actions are significant. And then when you come back here, finding that type of purpose again can be difficult. Struggling in those type of transitions include depression, sometimes homelessness. Sometimes disabled veterans face disasters or emergencies and make themselves especially vulnerable. These are people who have given. Now, I understand not everybody has those type of issues, but those are some of the things that members of our society are willing to expose themselves to, and young people, and we ought to honor them. we ought to let them know that, yes, we value their service. And so, again, for those of you here who have served, thank you. Thank you for that service. And be sure to express that to those whom you can. I know I need to do a better job. And we have, and I think it's of the Lord that things got postponed in the way it is. But here in a moment, we are going to partake of the Lord's Supper. And there's a reason why this service is special. This ought not just become a once-a-month tradition or ritual that we do and don't even think about. But the reason why we do it is to honor and remember, to set aside a time, a sacred, a holy time to remember the one who served us the most. And that is the Lord Jesus Christ. Look down here again at verse 28 of Matthew chapter 20. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. Turn with me, if you would, to John chapter 13, just to give you an example. We talked about service is giving. And serving others, it's not really difficult to know what service is. It's difficult to do. But knowing what it is, it's not all that complicated. But to actually do it. And now think of who Christ is. He is the eternally existent, eternally existing, eternally in the past, eternally in the present, eternally in the future. He has no beginning, no ending. He has all power, all ability. He has all authority. In his time in heaven before coming to earth, it was constantly spent with untold numbers of angelic beings praising him and worshiping him and glorifying him in an area that we can't even describe for its beauty and majesty. One preacher in England here has talked about our worship and said, we get so proud in our worship, in our way that we worship God, and the way that we, sing specials. And I'm not, saying that that's here, but sometimes, we can be so puffed up in the way that we sing or way we worship or the talents and abilities we have and try to show them off. And he said, do we realize that the very best that anybody here can do is absolutely like an out-of-tune trumpet compared to what God deals with and experiences in heaven every day, every moment of every day? How could anything we do compare? This God became flesh, became clothed in human flesh and dwelt among us. And even as a man, look at what he does. Verse number 1 of John chapter 13. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he was come from God and went to God. So in other words, Jesus understood, had full knowledge and awareness of who he was, what was going on here. In verse number 4, he riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. They wore a tunic. It's called a tunic. It was kind of like a long nightshirt that covered basically from the neck to below their knees. And they then put on their outer garments laid with that. So he wasn't without clothes. He took off his outer garments and in order to wash their feet, but it was a humbling thing to do. After that, he poureth water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith to him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? We'll skip over that exchange. Look at verse 12. So after he had washed their feet and taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, Know ye what I have done unto you? Ye call me Master and Lord, and ye say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that ye should do as I have done unto you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that sent greater than he that sent him. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them. We have a God, a creator, someone who made us, someone who died for us, someone who gave himself for us, who when he was on this earth said, laid aside even what little dignity he might have had among his disciples and did one of the dirtiest jobs you could do for somebody else. Wash their feet. Have you ever washed somebody else's feet? I have. And this was even in a church setting when I was at a church where they washed feet as a part of communion. How many of you are glad we don't do that here? And that was with people washing their feet before they came because, you don't really want to come with your feet all stinky. But that's not what they did. They didn't, come and pre-wash their feet thinking, okay, that way my feet don't smell when Jesus washes my feet. They had no idea what he was doing or what he was going to do. They were all dirty and grimy and dusty and sweaty and all of that. And Christ gets down and he rinses them in water, rubs them, gets all the dirt and the grime and the sweat off, and then dries them off with a towel. And he goes to the next one doing that because he was a servant. He gave his life for us because he was a servant. He now lives and intercedes for us in heaven because he still is serving us. And as his people, we ought to serve each other.
Softly and tenderly